The Seattle Sounders' brand new 2025 kit is here. Inspired by two traditional Southern Coast Salish weaving techniques, twilling and twinning. These techniques, passed down through generations, honor the resilience, deep-rooted ties, and creativity that define the cultural fabric of this region. The striking deep blue jersey will be worn by the Sounders for the next 2 seasons to honor the club's deep connection with the Puget Sound and shared responsibility as stewards of the greater Salish Sea watershed. Backing up that commitment, the Seattle Sounders will donate up to $50,000 to benefit community charities around the Puget Sound region. To get your very own Salish Sea kit, visit lobbingscorchers.com/kit. That's lobbingscorchers.com/KIT.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome in to another episode of Lobbing Scorchers Kickoff. This is Ari. I'll have Nico joining me in just a few minutes. Let me know if there's any audio issues out there, but I don't think there should be. Guys, it's a big one. It's a big one. It's a big week for the Seattle Sounders. They are off to Mexico for leg 2 of their CONCACAF Champions Cup round of 16 series against Cruz Azul. And it's always funny, I think, playing some of the biggest games that you'll play all season right at the beginning of the season. This is one of the biggest games that the club is going to play all season, and it's right there in front of them, 0-0 after leg 1, which wasn't an ideal result, but the more I've marinated on it, it's really not a catastrophic result. It was not a catastrophic result by any stretch. This series is very winnable. It's not going to be easy, don't get me wrong, but it's very winnable. Going to talk about why with Nico. I actually have some new intel about Cruz Azul that I thought was kind of interesting that I'm excited to talk about with him. And we're also going to talk about what we saw in the 5-2 beatdown of LAFC this weekend. I think that's one of those wins that's worth reliving a little bit. To me, it wasn't just about the 5 goals. It was about the narrative. In my opinion, the whole LAFC owns Seattle storyline got taken care of with the playoff win last year. How much can you really own a team if you lose it to them at home in the playoffs? But I do understand when people brought up, well, the 10 games before that were all LAFC. I get that. But now with the playoff win and a 5-2, that's over. It's over with. It's over with. LAFC owns Seattle storyline. It's dusted. And now it's all about Champions Cup. It is all about this game on Tuesday. Welcome in. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you all joining us every Monday at this early hour to get the week kick-started with some Seattle Sounders and Major League Soccer content. Need a Pedro de la Vega update? I think we all do. As far as severity, we should learn more on that this week, but I believe it was already clarified at the post-game presser that he's not traveling. So, if you're talking about an update as far as this game, they're going to have to play this game without him, which is that is unfortunate. That is unfortunate. When I saw him come off the field against LAFC, I pretty much you could tell right then and there that regardless of severity, he wasn't going to be able to play on that sort of turnaround. They shouldn't play him on that sort of turnaround with any sort of muscle injury, especially given his history. And that undeniably sucks. This was a game where, honestly, a lot of my hope, I think I said this already, but a lot of my hope for Seattle taking the result that they need in this game to advance was based around Pedro de la Vega being a big part of it, playing how he's been playing to start the season here. But once I kind of got past the sadness about seeing him walk off the field like that, I realized that the lineup that Seattle is going to be able to put out there, it's strong enough to get the result that they need. As disappointing as it was that they didn't score, the fact that they didn't give up a road goal, that actually matters. And that's why I was sort of questioning Cruz Azul's approach to that whole game. They were clearly limited with personnel, but they also were playing for a 0-0, and it might work. It might work. There's a good chance, honestly, that it'll work. You are playing with fire when you do that. You are. Because if you don't have a road goal, that gives, I wouldn't say the advantage to the team in the visiting team in the second leg, but that skews the dynamic a little bit in the sense that now all Seattle has to do is get a 1-1 or a 2-2, which like all they have to do. Like that's really hard on the road in Mexico, but that'd be a lot more. It'd be a lot steeper of a mountain if Cruz Azul had a road goal. I mean, look at the situation that Cincy's in. They tied their leg one against Tigres 1-1, which is honestly not a horrible result against a team like Tigres, but I would argue they're up against it even more than Seattle is. So Paul Rothrock is back. That was I think I said it on the post-game live, but I think that was the best Rothrock game that we've seen. I think it was. He was insane. Do you think Cruz Azul not really having a home stadium cut their home advantage at all? Yeah, we're going to talk about that. But I had a Cruz Azul fan in our YouTube comments who was kind of giving me some more intel on. He wasn't like giving it to me. He was just saying in general. But yeah, they don't have a home stadium right now. Aaron, do you know what the deal is for why that? Or okay, we got Nico hopping in right now, so we'll ask him about it. Nico Moreno, Pulso Sports, Sounder at heart. How are you doing, man?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I was having some issues with my background there, but we figured it out. We are ready to go. I tried to get fancy with it, and I failed, but here we are with it and ready to go. Excited to be on. Got my cup of coffee ready to go. We got the Rafe Green mug going. So, hey, happy to be here with you and our Lobbing Scorchers kickoff familia, man.
Yeah, Nico, I'm dying to catch up with you about what we saw in this LAFC game, and then also talk about this Cruz Azul game. I mean, I was just saying, but it's one of the biggest games that they're going to play all season, this game. And they're coming off about as galvanizing a performance, I think, as they possibly could have had. I think the first half of that LAFC game was it was great to see them score the early goal, and it was great to see KKR make a play like that. We'll talk about that. It was a great assist from Jesus Ferreira on that play. That was great to see. But the Pedro de la Vega injury really put a damper on that first half, to the point where I think I even put on Blue Sky during the first half that that game felt like an abject disaster at that point, because they had gone ahead. They were looking good. De La Vega was out there. He was still looking good. And they lose him in the first half. And him coming off with a muscle injury, you already know he can't play on Tuesday. And you don't know how long he's going to be out after that. So I wouldn't say I was fully crashing out in the first half, but I was like, this is not good. Like, honestly, with De La Vega coming off, the way I was thinking of it was, even if they win this game, they kind of still lost with him coming off. However, after seeing them rack 4 more goals in the second half and really just beat the brakes off LAFC, dominate him, like get him out of here. Like they didn't even belong on the field. So that was cathartic to watch. Let's start right there, Nico. I mean, just what were your thoughts and takeaways from that second half where Seattle dominated LAFC in a way that we just have not seen them ever dominate LAFC? I mean, what did you make of that second half performance?
Look, I thought it was great, and I, put some thoughts on it on X, and I think on Blue Sky as well. I really think that it was an overall team win, and even when things got dicey with Pedro's injury and the equalizer, getting and starting that second half with such presence and that response, that character, that's something that's important. I think Jordan was influential the moment he stepped on the field. I think if there was anything really wrong with that first half performance was Danny Musovski and his inability to really connect or really get going throughout that game. And Jordan just changes everything, right? I mean, it makes everything up there work better. He gets into better spaces. He creates a lot more mayhem, chaos for the defenders, and the team just responded well. Paul Rothrock needed this sort of game. He was struggling after his injury. He was talking about having rust, and his sort of soccer kind of leaves off vibes. He needs that confidence, right? He needs to be able to have that on him. And not that he's a guy that you might look at and think, man, that guy needs confidence, but it's just about the soccer component, not him as a person or anything like that. Is whenever you feel like you can get through a player in a V1 situation, whenever you think that you can get a shot like the one that he took off and he puts in the back of the net, all those things are mental states, and he needed it. So that was important for me. Love to see the fact that Albert Rusnak gets on for Pedro and begins to be that guy that moves everything around, distributes, that his goal was important, right? To just what we just talked about, that impulse and that momentum and everything that goes in of this sort of performance against the LA Galaxy, it all kind of came together. Jordan Morris getting his 87th goal, that was huge, right? That's not just a title and a subline and something that people need to watch, but it just talks about a player who's gotten a lot of heat over his time in Seattle for decisions and staying in MLS and not doing all these things. But all I want to say is I have never seen a player as scrutinized as Jordan Morris take things with such maturity. And I'm sure he's got his lows in his own personal time, and he's had lows on the field and has, maybe had moments where he can't get to the back of the net, but he's never stopped trying. He's never been a guy that goes to practice and just takes a practice off. He's always relentless. He's always getting better, growing, and watching him get this record, it's credit to him, and it's honestly something that I'm proud to have witnessed from the moment that I started covering this team to now. And I honestly congratulate him, and I hope he can build off of this, and he has another fantastic season. But I did want to take some time to express that, because I feel like maybe he doesn't get said enough about Jordan Morris. He's definitely one of the great sounders of all time. He's definitely, the best homegrown for this franchise, possibly, one of the best in MLS history. And I'm just proud of him getting to that record.
I'm glad you said that, because you're right. He took a lot of heat earlier in his career. There was the whole discourse around, like, it was mostly U.S. men's national team fans that were unhappy with his decision to stay in MLS and not go to the Bundesliga or whatever. I don't think anyone who matters cares or respects what they have to say. But what I thought was weird was the response from a lot of the Seattle fan base this offseason, when it came out that there was the escalators for him becoming a designated player. Now, I will admit, Noah and I both raised our eyebrows, I think, a little bit when we found that out. And I think it's a fair question to ask if that was a good move, but like the reaction that it was this outlandish thing and he's not close to a designated player at all, and the fact that he's a designated player on this roster represents a lack of ambition and all those talking points. I mean, he's making that look stupid so far. We'll see. Maybe we'll come to a point at the end of the season where we look back on it and we're like, man, Jordan Morris being a designated player in MLS doesn't make sense. I highly doubt that. He's already got 3 goals this season, and he's scored the most goals in the history of the club. And he's also been a big game player for this club. So there's been narratives out there that he like doesn't show up in big games. I mean, literally go to his player page and look at his playoff stats. Tell me that
maybe he hasn't had his moments, but I think those are coming up, right? I mean, I feel like when we think of big moments, we think of Raul and Nico's performance in CCC final here in Seattle. You think of the 2019 final here, and moments that other players have had. But at the end of the day, he's been important, and he has been productive, and he has shown up in those big games. Just because maybe we can't think of a huge moment where he was the guy who put him through. I think that last season, beating LAFC and him having his moment, that's a moment that you can remember, even if Seattle wasn't able to do it in the Western Conference final.
People kept the talking point that he doesn't show up in big games after he scored that goal against LAFC in the playoffs last year. Or, I could go down the list. This is a guy that scored the game-winning goal in the Western Conference final. This is a guy that had a hat trick against FC Dallas in the playoffs. So I don't even, we don't need to litigate all the.
No, we don't. And that's why I wanted to just generalize his career in Seattle and just talk about it as a whole, not necessarily the moment. Because like you said, he's been disrespected even this year, if not disrespected, criticized about everything that you just said.
But at the end of the day, I think he was.
Perfect. Yeah, and that's fair, man. Because I mean, when you have a guy that just hit 87 goals for your franchise, yeah, he should be right to be still disrespected, right? And we look at MLS in general, and we look at DPs and all of these things, and that's where we forget and we get kind of tunnel vision on he's the DP. But when you look at his productivity in general, man, I think that he's been phenomenal for the team. And again, it's not easy being Jordan Morris through the injuries, through the criticism, through his diabetes and all of the things that he kind of fights against every single day. It's hard for me to hear somebody just hate on the guy because that's just not right. And I've been a guy that has talked about his inability to finish and has talked about me wanting him elsewhere, not at the striker position. But that's nothing. That's no indictment on his character at all. He's such a professional. He's such a nice guy. Always amazing to the press, amazing to the fans, man. So I have nothing but great things to say about Jordan Morris and whether he can continue to grow in his position and continue to grow in his career and build more moments for him. And I wish him nothing but the best, but I'm happy for him in general sense. And now going back to the game, unless you got something more to say about that there.
Only thing I had to say was Derek Richards, you're a maniac. Thank you for the $4 super sticker. I'm just real quick. Other shouts from this LAFC game. You mentioned Paul Rothrock. I've been saying that I think this might have been the best Paul Rothrock game of his career so far, which he's had a lot of good ones. But Nico, he took over the game. There was like a 10 to 20 minute period in the second half where he took over the game pretty much, not single-handedly, but he was dominating singularly in a way that I don't know that I've seen him dominate in MLS game. He was giving Ryan Hollingshead absolute hell out there. It was hilarious to watch. The play where he juked Hollingshead out of his shoes, that's about as much as you can be put on skates. That you're not going to see many defenders in top flight leagues get juked that bad.
And him having this sort of game when Pedro comes off has to be a relief for the coaching staff and for everyone, really. we hope that Pedro's okay. We hope that it's not a long-term injury. I've not heard anything just quite yet. I'm pretty sure that they're waiting for that swelling to go down so he can get a proper scan and figure out what the severity of the muscle injury is. So we'll probably hear from them once they come back from Mexico. I doubt that we get anything before that. But having Paul Rothrock having this sort of moment, like you said, is important. And those were all the things that I think were important about the LAFC game. So I did want to say something, and it goes to the game. So we're not going to move on from the game. But here at Lobbing Scorchers, we don't hide from anything, and we don't, we're not shying away from any comment that people have said. And I did want to bring this up for you. I realize that this LAFC team was heavily rotated. And I realized that the Marlon injury kind of compounded the issues that LA had to hold off the Seattle team. However, not every team takes advantage of those moments. The Seattle team did. They also rotated. It was depth versus depth, and Sounders had the better depth. It is a mental win as well, because of everything that LAFC has been your boogeyman for as long as they have, and the fact that you hit him and you hit him hard, that's credit to the team.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I think that's the beautiful thing about that win and how dominant it was. We're already trying the LAFC was rotated, so Seattle's win doesn't count. The goals don't count. Rusnak's goal contributions don't count. The beauty of it is Seattle was also rotating. That was rotated Seattle. Like you said, it was depth on depth. One team's depth was up for it. One team's wasn't. Like you can't use that excuse. LAFC fans and our friends over at Happy Foot Sad Foot, shout out Happy Foot Sad Foot. They were rationalizing with the it was the squad was rotated, this focus on CCC, all that. Like that's how I would cope too. So I'm not begrudging them that, but the reality is Seattle was in the exact same situation. And you could say, well, Rusnak and Jordan Morris came on, they subbed on, so those were first choice players going against their backups, but that's the whole point. That is still rotated Seattle. Like that is a game where it was hedged on their depth, and with how their roster is set up, you can bring on guys like Jordan Morris and Albert Rusnak and still kind of save yourself and keep fresh legs by not playing them the full game, and not only that, but LAFC, they brought on Denny Bwanga in the second half. They had Olivier Giroud out there who's become a depth player for them, but that's sort of, I think that's, I don't know. I'm definitely not saying LAFC is chalked, but like the LAFC of previous years, they had the depth to go into a game like that and remain competitive and honestly take results and win those games. So they can say that they were rotated and that they were punting the game or whatever, but they were playing a team in Seattle that was in the exact same situation. So that literally, like anyone who is saying that, bringing up the point that LAFC was rotated, so what Seattle did doesn't count, that point is literally completely meaningless because both teams were in the same situation. I think we got to shout out KKR. He makes a huge play on that goal to get things started. Like what an individual effort. And this guy, like we talk a lot about on this show of young players and the difference between a young player who's like blending in and trying not to make mistakes and a young player who is impacting the game, moving the needle, like making plays. KKR now, in the limited sample that we've seen him, he scored a game winner in the Open Cup and did a backflip, did an Oba flip. That was like sports photo of the year in the state of Washington or something. And then he makes this play in the LAFC game, which we want to talk about how Rothrock ended Hollingshead's career. KKR on that play, the U22 left back kid that was out there for LAFC, that is a U22 signing for them. That is like one of their young guys that they're counting on. KKR owned him. So, that was great to see as well. Did you have any thoughts on KKR?
I got heat for calling it a golazo. Look, it's a golazo to me. Both Paul Rothrock and Kalani had golazos, in my opinion, but it's the pass from Ferreira, the way he puts it, where he puts it, then Kalani's physicality to beat the defender or the midfielder that was trying to get possession of the ball, then get into that end line, get into the defender, making that half turn, and then having the composure to put the ball away with his left foot. Man, I just think that he made a quality play, and I stand by the golazo comment. Look, I've been high on.
Who was saying that wasn't a golazo? I mean, it wasn't like from distance, but like the way he.
Yeah, someone put golazo. I was like, all right, well, we all got, it's all subjective, sure, but I think it was a fantastic play, and especially for a player that was coming from as deep position as he did, and the entire effort, and again, the technical component for you to make that turn adequately and then put the ball away, man. I thought it was fantastic, and like I said, I've been high on Kalani since the preseason. When he had his RSL start, I didn't think he played his best game. I didn't think he had a good game because of the potential that I see within the player. And in this one, he just had a complete performance. And on both sides of the ball, there's that one play where I think that there's a counterattack from LAFC, and Kalani was on the offensive end, and he makes a sprint, DK-like, and just full retreats, blocks the passing lane, and man, that just talks about the kind of athlete that he is. But to me, it's not just his athleticism. That's always been obvious, but his location and ability to understand the game and have that field awareness, I feel it's really underrated when it comes to young players like him. And I see it. I see the way he cuts the field. I see the spaces he jumps into, even when he doesn't get the ball, or maybe there's a mistake on the sequence. He's always at the right place. I enjoy his play. Again, I'm not here sitting telling you that he's the next Roberto Carlos or anything like that, but I do want to praise a kid when he deserves to be praised, because I think sometimes people are like, oh, Nico's hyping this guy. I'm not. I see a lot of good qualities out of him, and what I see is fair, in my opinion. And take it for what it is, but I think that he's a very good player, and I'm glad that he's going to get a contract. We haven't heard anything, but I think it's as clear as day.
He announced it after the game. That was pretty funny.
Exactly.
He was doing media after the game, and I mean, he has not done that much at this point in his career. I'm sure like he did interviews with the student newspaper at UW or whatever, but like he's not used to doing these scrums. He looked pretty comfortable at first, and then someone asked him about like a first team contract, and he got really uncomfortable because they announced it in the locker room after the game. And I think he wasn't sure if he was supposed to divulge it, but then he did divulge it. That I'm sure there's going to be, maybe there already is that I haven't seen. There's going to be some behind the scenes video of them announcing it in the locker room and him getting mobbed by his teammates or whatever. But Nico, did you happen to see Steve Cherundolo's presser after the game? This was interesting.
I don't know if it was the whole thing. I looked it up on YouTube, and it was 2 minutes and 28 seconds, and there was one question.
The one I saw was shorter than that, but this was a blazing hot presser of the week, which someone asked me in the post-game live if I thought Steve C was going to give a blazing hot presser, and I said no. Because they're like, that's a game that is full of excuses, like if you want to make them. So that's what I thought he was going to do. But to be fair, he did not. But this is what I thought was interesting, Nico. Tell me what you think of this. He was talking about what went wrong in the game, and he said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said something to the effect of our subs came into the game and they were not up for it in terms of effort and mentality. And he said that cannot happen, which is a very harsh indictment of every single player that subbed on to the game for LAFC. You know who was one of the players who subbed in?
Denny Bouanga.
Yeah. Steve C was saying that at his post-game preference about Denny Bouanga. That caught my ear. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I thought he focused on the wrong thing. I think if he would have talked about maybe lack of anything, it would have been his starting lineup, and not as an excuse, but we could have done better there. I thought that the subs did fine, especially La Perla Martinez, who came in and had a baller of a ball.
Bouanga was bad.
Well, yeah, Bouanga was not great, but putting him in that position at that moment in time, I don't put the game so much on him. I think that there was a lot of inability to control the game from him, and now they're a team that likes to play against that run of play, and that's fine and well. But when Denny Bouanga doesn't have that sort of inner squad or like co-stellar group around him, he has a really hard time getting on the ball, and I think that's what happened. So I don't know what it is that he was trying to get at. He was definitely coming at those players. But yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised by it. That we heard the exact same press conference, and like I said, there was one question, and that was it. So I thought that he got cut short, but maybe that's all he did.
I don't know. To me, a coach saying that he's very clearly directing that at his star player, at his best player. He said that Denny Bouanga was not up for that in terms of effort and mentality. That's not good. That is not like, if your coach is saying that about your star player. I'm gonna be keeping an eye on LAFC drama watch, because there was already kind of inklings that Denny Bouanga maybe wanted out of there or wasn't entirely happy there. So this could end up having wider ranging implications in the Western Conference than we even thought. Bad Sequels, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Appreciate the support. What are y'all's thoughts on the passing? I thought it was one of our most fluid games. Lots of one touch, reminded me of the Clint Oba days. Nico, why don't you take that one real quick, and then I've got something to pull up for our next topic. So,
I thought that the passing was great, and I think it got better progressively in the second half. I thought in order to get those passing sequences that they've been working on in the entire preseason, the pivots are fundamental. And I thought that both JP, happy birthday, JP, by the way, had a fantastic game, and Danny Leyva were both great, right? I mean, both of those two players have to be so clean with the ball from where they get it to where they get it. The understanding of people being in the right spacings, both Paul Rothrock and Alex Roldan, I mean, I feel like they get to the right positions. They understand where to be. So yeah, I mean, I think the passing was fantastic. Again, everything got better once Jordan came in, because there's so much fluidity in that attacking end for Seattle that's what they've been working on, is those dynamic movements. And I felt like Moose was making that transitional moment real tough, and at times he was occupying the same spaces than other players did. And when Jordan came in, it all came in better. But in terms of passing, I thought that it was one of their best games so far, especially, right? I don't want to look too much into the Antigua games, right? So I'm going to just focus on this one and say that, yeah, it's probably their best fully passing game that they had. Yeah.
That second half is the Seattle Sounders at their best. When they are playing to their potential and their identity, that's what it looks like. And that one touch, dominant in possession, styling on you, like that's all stuff that they do when it's functioning at the highest level. So to have them be able to put in a performance like that before a game like this is doesn't guarantee anything by any stretch of the imagination, but it's definitely encouraging. All right, Nico, let's talk some Cruz Azul, because like I said, this is one of the biggest games they're going to play all season. And they put themselves in a tough situation by not getting out to the lead in the first leg, but they also, by not giving up a road goal, they put themselves in a situation where it's all there for the taking, and all they got to do is get a draw. They got to score and get a draw, and they advance. So it's a very difficult task. Don't get me wrong, but it's there's been years of CCC where an MLS team in this situation would be considered chalked. And I don't think that they're considered chalk, but this is what I wanted to talk to you about real quick to get us started on this game here. This was a YouTube comment that we got from a Cruz Azul fan. hold on. Oh my God. Okay. Hold on 1 second.
Now I'm kind of
All right.
nervous. What's going on?
Okay, this is just some random Cruz Azul fan, and I just thought this was
Okay.
funny, and I wanted to get your take on this. He says, Cruz Azul fan here from California. We just lost a coach and got a new coach who's making horrible decisions. I would greatly, all caps, appreciate it if Seattle Sounders could destroy Cruz Azul in Mexico next week. If Cruz Azul loses, then they fire the coach, and I need that to happen. Not for betting purposes, but because I can see how much having this coach we have affects us negatively. We need him gone as soon as possible. Y'all got this. Tire them out. The coach doesn't make significant subs until the 80th minute. And then he goes on to say, Cruz Azul doesn't have a home field right now. They're using someone else's home field. They won't play that much better. They'll just be more comfortable to play on real grass. This guy had another comment about how he's a Cruz Azul fan actively rooting for Seattle because he wants the coach fired. So I did not realize the extent of the discontent in their fan base, that they would have fans that are actively rooting for Seattle to win this series. What do you make of that? Is that sort of sentiment something that's common in Mexico with this team right now? Or like, because to me, I look at that and I'm like, if there's that much discontent around their team and their fan base right now, and they don't even have a home field, this might be like a more wounded animal than I even thought.
Yeah, this is exactly what we've been talking about from the very beginning. There's some real turmoil in the back end of what you see out of the team on the field. This is the narrative, and it's been the narrative all season long since interim head coach Vicente Sanchez took over for Anselmi. And he's being scrutinized because that Anselmi team was so fun to watch, and it was so good. And it's funny because they never won anything, but they did get very far in tournaments. And that excitement is what people were looking for. And I think they got used to a certain style of play. And now when an interim head coach has to do other things and be a lot more conservative, and I've heard the same sort of criticism about his substitution patterns and some of the lineups that he puts together. So it is the narrative. This is all a reality. And this is something that, again, we talked about from the very beginning. I mean, it was a problem. Maybe people didn't think it was important because sometimes we don't look at the context of how a team is coming together to play a Sounders team. I do. I know that the first thing I look at is where the team is. Are there any issues? How long has it been working with this specific coach? How long has the cohesiveness and the continuity of this group goes along? Is it 1 season, 2 seasons? And this squad has had a lot of issues, right? It's definitely something to watch, because just this weekend, Cruz Azul tied 1-1 with Monterrey. I thought that they were the way better team in the first half, but their issue has been not scoring goals. They have not been able to finish, and they had a ton. El Cuate Sepulveda had at least 2 that he should have put away. Rotondi had a couple that he should have put away. This is a Monterrey team that with Sergio Ramos, by the way, who scores in this one. He just posterizes somebody off of a cross, of a corner kick. But this is a quality Monterrey team. Maybe not the best Monterrey of all times. There's another coach on that end that is getting a lot of heat in Monterrey. So this Cruz Azul team has a lot of issues that might help the Sounders on Tuesday. And again, they just played at home. It wasn't a sellout crowd. It was a vibrant crowd, but it didn't really seem to help the team in the second half when things started to go bad. In the 74th, POV gets a red card. So Monterrey really gets on top of Cruz Azul. Kevin Mier had to be huge for the team at the end. The goalkeeper stops a couple of really big opportunities from Berterame. So there's a lot of holes in this team. You might not see it, but the lack of consistency within just 90 minutes of this passing game tells me that Seattle has a chance, man. They have an opportunity to definitely go over there and do it. Now, don't go over there and get overconfident. Play your game. I do want Seattle to be mindful of when and how they commit guys forward, because, again, you don't want to give this team a lot of spaces. they're a different squad than what we saw here at Lumen Field. I want to make that very clear. And you'll see it. Rotondi is going to be all over the pitch. You will see it on that left side. He is a guy that's going to be so important. Charlie, Giacomakis, he had a bit of a knock on his shoulder, which was interesting. He stayed on, but he had a bit of a knock on his shoulder. So, hey, man, there's a lot of things that Seattle could expose from Cruz Azul. So if that fan wants Vicente Sanchez out, hopefully that's a lot of the crowd. But there's definitely been a huge narrative behind getting rid of Vicente Sanchez. Unfortunately, because he's such a nice guy, man. I like Vicente.
MLS guy, you know?
Yeah.
What is going on with their home field? I feel like I was told this, but why are they playing at neutral sites?
And, Ari, we talked about this in the first episode going into Cruz Azul, but
I know we did. I
will say it again.
Remind me.
No, definitely. So Cruz Azul, long story short, basically was playing at Ciudadanos Deportes, which is ironically where America is playing right now, as they make a remodel to Estadio Azteca for the upcoming World Cup.
Got it.
And it's an 80-year-old stadium, near 80. I think it's 78 to be fair, but it's almost 80 years old. Cruz Azul was paying a huge, hefty part of their revenue in terms of what they're paying to play there. The concessions, ticketing, and other percentages that was going to the group that owns the stadium. They were having a whole bunch of calendar issues where, just like it happens here with Loomis, sometimes there are events that are going to be part of that stadium, and Cruz Azul wouldn't be able to play there. There was a moment where if America was not going to go to the final, they would have played out of Mexico City because there was nowhere else to play, because there was an event happening at Ciudadanos Deportes. So it's been a huge basket of things that have been issues. There's also obviously problems with the facility, and when Cruz Azul went and asked about changing those things, they said, hey man, go ahead, but it's gonna fall out of your pocket. Like, fix whatever you want, but it's on you. You know, it's like your landlord saying, hey Ari, if you want to fix the toilet, go ahead and buy another one. They're like, how would man, it's your place, what are you talking about? Yeah. So that's kind of all the issues that happened, and they decided they were gonna just leave. And funny enough, Anselmi, who is now gone, he was the person who said, hey, let's play at CU, Ciudad Universitaria, Pumas Stadium. And that's kind of what happened. That's why they've been playing there. But there were options of going elsewhere, but because they're a pretty big fan base, so there were options of playing in Puebla and, other stadiums around the country, but they ended up deciding to stay in Mexico City in Estadio Olímpico, and that's why they've been playing there temporarily.
This is actually a pretty fun little opportunity for Seattle, just like in a hypothetical world where they go out there and beat Cruz Azul at all. But like, even if they say it's like a decisive victory for Seattle, which I'm not predicting that, but just for the sake of argument, if that did happen, like this coach would get fired. Their entire organization would be sent into turmoil. The amount of pressure that is on them in this game is immense. It's way, way more pressure than's on Seattle. There's a lot of pressure on this game for Seattle. Don't get me wrong. If Seattle loses this game or doesn't advance, they're going to have to deal with the can't win big games or Rusnak is a ghost narratives or whatever. So that's all definitely pressure, and I don't want to deal with that discourse. But literally, it sounds like to me the functionality of Cruz Azul as an organization is kind of on the line. They need to win this game. Like they have to.
They do. Vicente's playing for his life. I mean, for his career, for his job. That's the reality.
Yeah,
that's exactly why he held some of the guys from the Seattle first leg and wanted him to play against Monterrey because he knew exactly what it meant, and it didn't really work for him because he didn't get the result he wanted. Again, he could have. I bet in the first half, Cruz Azul should have been at least up 2-0 at the very least, and they just didn't do that. But this is what's funny. Bogut played 90 minutes, full 90 minutes. He came off, but he came off in the 90th minute. Ignacio Rivero, another key component of this team, played 90 minutes. Giacomakis came in the 67. I told you he had a bit of a knock. He stayed on, but something to look at. So, man, they took no prisoners in this one. They really went after everything, and there's a lot of tired legs, in my opinion. Wilder Dita played 90. He had played 90 here. Lira played 90. Charlie played 90. I mean, man, it's going to be a team that I'm sure that they're used to playing consistently, and I'm not saying they're going to go over there and be ragdolls, but hey, look, there's no doubt in my mind that there's a lot of high mileage on a lot of these players going into this game.
Yeah, absolutely. The Gurns, thank you for the $2 super chat. Much appreciated. Will this game be on TV? I can't find info on this. Yeah, CONCACAF is famously difficult to obtain their broadcast info. I feel like these games have all been on FS2, right? I think it's either
they have been, but there's been a whole bunch of issues with FS2, and this is awful, by the way. And they do it all the time.
It's so stupid.
They take off the game for basketball games, and it happened to my wife and my daughter in the first leg, where they're like, "Hey, where can we find the game?" The FS2 just switched to a basketball game,
and it's always like mid-major college basketball. It's like,
come on,
Appalachian State versus Virginia Tech.
Blows my mind. But for the comment, if you get a chance to get to the N, usually is like Comcast 116 for HD. But you know, the Mexican channels are very good about this particular type of game. I'm 100% sure that that's going to be on TUDN. That's where I usually check them out. If you can't find it, and they haven't had all the games, but on YouTube, CONCACAF has been pretty good about putting the entire game live on YouTube. Only Spanish commentary, though. So maybe fun time to just try your Spanish. And then the number 3 option that worked in the first game in Antigua was downloaded I guess we'll just go ahead and say Fox Sports app. They're not, funding the show, but we'll just say it for the sense of the comment. But yeah, Fox Sports app on your smart TV or phone, they had the game. But yeah, it's been complicated. CONCACAF sucks about this sort of stuff, especially with a partner like FS that apparently doesn't care about soccer.
Yeah, people in chat are saying FS1. I've had this soapbox for years and years now about Fox Sports and how they treat these games. If you are not going to air the game in its entirety without switching it to like your college basketball obligations, you need to relinquish your broadcast rights, and that needs to be given to somebody who will play the full game. That is it. Like I feel like I shouldn't have to keep saying this in the year 2025. I've been saying it since 2014. But they do this every year. They don't care about soccer. They don't care about this tournament. And it's honestly a joke. Like, it's a joke. So,
and it's always Fox Sports, man. Like, I hate to just hit him like that, but I remember a couple of years ago, like I was trying to watch, I forgot what game that the Sounders were on. Maybe it was against Leon, and there was NASCAR on, and the game wouldn't come on, and it was already like in the 18th minute of the game or something like that, and the game didn't come on through the second half or some ridiculous thing like that. It blows my mind.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why I don't feel bad. Like, if you want to illegally stream that, go for it, I say, because I mean, they bring it on themselves by having terrible production value and not even airing the whole game. But anyway, that's enough airtime for Fox Sports. I guess looking more at this Cruz Azul matchup, Nico, they're going to be fielding, like you said, a much stronger lineup than they were in the first leg. Game plan wise, tactics, mentality, how do you size this up as far as what Seattle needs to do in order to take the result that they need in this game?
I would like to see a little bit of what they did against LAFC, which was mirroring the formation. So playing with 3 in the back. So I would like to see your 3 that everybody knows: Jackson, Yeimar, Nuhu. Shout out to Yeimar, by the way. I've never seen him be as good on his passing as he was this weekend. So hopefully he takes that on, because he was so good in his passing. I had the stats here. He had, and this is numbers that I don't usually see from him on the passing, and not all, forward passes or anything like that, but he had 61 of the 64 passes, 95% of his passes. That was interesting. So that's going to be important. So I would like to see that happen. Obviously, Christian and Obed are going to be key. Not sure if Ferreira is starting this game with Pedro out.
Yeah, I was going to ask, let's talk about the lineup. I think it is pretty straightforward as far as the back line is going to be. Nuhu and Alex Roldan as your wide backs, Reagan and Ymar as your CBs, Christian Obed double pivot. But the attack is where it gets interesting. The way I would predict it, I guess, would be Rusnak central, Jordan up top, Ferreira on one side. Who do you think what do you think that the front four is going to look like?
I think it's going to be Jordan up top with Ferreira and Albert playing as a dual cam behind them.
Okay.
And your wingbacks, to me, are going to be Paul Arriola on the left and Alex Roldan on the right. To me, that seems to be the best formation they could possibly put right now for this specific game. No disrespect to Rothrock, because he was unbelievable, and you're going to have him. He's going to be your first man off the bench if you need him.
He needs to play. He needs to play at least 30 in this game. With how he looked in that last game,
absolutely.
He looked like the most dangerous player on the field. It's might sound funny to say about, again, a guy like Paul Rothrock, who burst onto the scene like he did, but when I was thinking about it, I was like, damn, I feel like maybe you don't start him, but he's got to play.
Yeah, but for me, I want to see Paul Arriola. I mean, the other Paul, the older Paul. Because just experience. Because he's got such a good connection with Ferreira that I want to maximize that. His services in the box, and honestly, his link up play is very, very good, and I think you're going to need that against Cruz Azul. So that's the way I would set it up. In terms of the tactics, again, just being mindful and understanding that you cannot give this Cruz Azul team a lot of space to get behind your back line. Set pieces are going to be important. Restarts in general are going to be important for Seattle. Throw-ins, quick free kicks. I mean, things that these Mexican teams are very good at. And not Mexican teams, but in general, a lot of teams are. And Seattle has at moments struggled with those restarts this first start of the season. So being very disciplined, focus on those moments. I also want to see Seattle be good on set pieces. Cruz Azul tends to have some issues, and you saw it here. Nuhu gets a great, I think he hit the post, right? The crossbar. So those things I feel like Seattle needs to exploit and really make those set pieces count. I think Albert Rusnak has been so good about putting balls in the right positions. We got to make that happen. Gamer Gomez Andrade tends to get into the right spaces. Can he get a goal of a corner or a free kick? So those are the things that I feel like are going to be key components for Seattle. Obviously, over-possessing the ball in this one. I want to keep Cruz Azul off the ball. There is something about what we kind of talked about in terms of the stadium. I feel like it's a double-edged sword when a team that has so much pressure on right now, they're going to want a quick goal. They're going to want to get the fan base ignited right off the bat. If you're able to keep the first 45 with no goals, that's a good thing for Seattle. And you really take the air out of the stadium, because it's going to turn from excitement into full-on pressure. And that's good for Seattle. So possessing the ball, just being mindful about long spells of possession, and you just got to be clinical. The moment you get an opportunity, you have to put it away. Jordan, Ferreira, that's why you brought him on, right? That's why you got Ferreira. Exactly. That's the way you want your new acquisition to start to build his name, is in this sort of opportunity, this sort of game. Jordan, you just broke a record. Now cement that even more by putting yourself in the top of the history books, by getting this game and finishing the chances in front of goal. The momentum is there. I'm sure that he's going to come with a positive attitude after a game like he had. So can he do that? That's going to be key.
I agree that the longer it stays 0-0, that's suits Seattle. But I would say it's more about in a game like this, I view it more about the first 20 than the first 45. If you can get to 20 with the game state not out of control or crazy and 0-0, and like you said, take the air out of it, that's sort of, to me, that is the first thing I'm looking at in a game like this is, can you make it to 20 with the game state intact and without conceding? If you can do that, that's task number one. And then really, like, if you can just score one goal in the first half, like, you'll be in pretty good shape, assuming that you're able to make it through those first 20 without conceding, like, it's all about like withstanding that early pressure, I think. Good question from Aaron here. How open do we expect the second leg to be? Feel like we couldn't play our passing possession game against Antigua because they were such a physical team and broke everything up. Nico, you got any thoughts on that?
I think that we just talked about it. I mean, it has to be quality. I feel like it's going to be very open. Even with their best 11, I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong, but what I've seen out of Cruz Azul, looking at the last 3 games and doing the research that I have, they really don't have that huge disruptor against Monterrey. They play Lira as that disrupting full-on 6. I'm going to take it away. I'm not going to allow you to get a series of passes and sequences, but they're very gappy. I mean, they're very gappy. And because they're so because they demand so much out of their fullbacks or wingbacks, depending on what formation they set on, they create a lot of pockets where those 3 in the back, they have a lot of responsibility. Piovi, Dida, Sanchez, those are all good quality guys. You saw how good Dida was in the game here in Seattle, but maybe getting those moments to really exploit them, that's something that is going to be part of being able to possess the ball and move things around, shift things. When it comes to that repress as well, being more effective with that repress, if you're able to get a ball, get those moments, you see how Kevin Mier plays the game. Maybe at times you want to be a little bit more direct and not so much possession based if you get a chance to get the ball on a repress. But again, I going back to the main point in the comment, I feel like Seattle's going to be very open with it, and they need to win the possession battle in this one, in my opinion.
I think the set piece thing that you mentioned was a great call out. Seattle was the best set piece team in the league last year, and they have been executing their set pieces really well to start the season here, but they keep jumping offside. And it was great to see them get a set piece goal against LAFC, but Ferreira almost got that waved off. He really I think the way
it was
that
marginal.
It was marginal, and I think the VAR was absolutely correct to come to the conclusion that you couldn't obviously tell either way. But I will say, if guys, if that was CONCACAF VAR, they're waving that off. The way that CONCACAF VAR works is if they don't appear to clear and obvious, as best I can tell, the way they think of VAR is if they see any like half evidence that maybe the call should have gone the other way, they are going to overturn it. So my point is, you got to be on it with that. Like Ferreira, if he does that or if anybody does that in this game, they are going to take that goal away. The MLS VAR, they had that right. That's how you're supposed to use it. But anyway, I think with Seattle's ability and aptitude on these set pieces in a game like this, that is a huge X factor, and that's something where this is we've been a long time defenders of Albert Rusnak. I would say I think he's a guy that takes a lot of heat that's over the top, but it's not just him. Like, especially with no De La Vega, like he's got to step up. Ferreira's got to step up. Jordan's got to step up. Like this is where your big money guys you gotta be able to score in this game. If they get clean sheeted, I'll be very disappointed.
To me, I think Ferreira needs to be the guy in this one. I think Ferreira needs to be creative. I think he has to help out in the distribution component, and I feel like he has to be a presence in the final third as well. I've been wanting to see him more active in that end part of the field. In this one, he was good in passing wise, and I think he gets to the right places. But I want to see him more active, and he's gonna have to be more active against a very physical, very fast, very quick Cruz Azul team. That, oh, by the way, is very good at absorbing pressure and passing through pressure. Me and Jeremiah have both talked about how good Ferreira can be when it comes to those trigger points on when to repress and when to press. That's going to be huge. If you can get a moment where you get this team coming off the back and you can get a moment where you get the ball in a vulnerable position, you got to make it count. And for me, Ferreira is going to be huge in that part, in that aspect of the game. Now, I keep talking about Ferreira, and I'm not really sure if he's going to start.
He has to start.
I think so. That's where I'm kind of nervous. I think he's a must start. But me and Brian have not, been really good about seeing eye to eye when it comes to, starting 11s this year. So, I hope that he starts. I think that he's a must start, but we'll see what Brian comes up with.
Schmetz listens to the show. Did you hear that we got confirmation on this?
I did. I love that, man. Noah, he's so cool when he asks a question, man. He's like, I don't know. I don't want to call him like Matthew McConaughey because he don't got like just Southern draw, but the way he just puts it together. The way he puts it together, I was just like, oh, okay, that's him. Because I don't know who asked the question, and then I had to like rewind him. He was like, oh yeah, you could check that on your pod. No, that's good, man. Brian's always very good about just checking out the local scene, and he's not shy about it, and I like that.
Some people thought that he was giving Noah attitude. I took it as like good natured, like. But I was somewhat surprised that he clearly, like, I don't know if he actually listens to the show, but he knows about it.
Yeah, look, to be honest, if he's giving no attitude, it's nothing to do with Noah. Probably has to do with me. I'm the black sheep of the Lobbing Scorchers. So go ahead and take that heat. Give it to me. I take it. Noah, you the man, baby. You too cool for school, man. I'm the black sheep. If you get any heat from Brian, it's my fault. But no, look, I do want to praise Brian for the way he handled that game against LAFC, and I saw that he gave the game ball, I believe, to Kalani, and he talked about you earned your spot, and Craig's gonna find you. All of those things, man. I feel like the right vibes going into this game is gonna be important. That camaraderie, that momentum that's been built, and Brian, if anything, has always been good about that. And the way that game ended, everything he said in the locker room were all the right things. So I really hope that the team goes out there and uses that and builds off of that, because that's gonna be important.
You got to credit Schmetz for a lot of the development that we're seeing with some of these guys. Like, I think Rothrock is the best example in the last couple years where the role that Schmetzer and the coaching staff played in his development and his eventual breakthrough doesn't always get talked about as part of the storyline. But Schmetzer is a coach who, I would say earlier in his head coaching tenure, had a reputation for maybe not trusting young players and being too beholden to his vets. But really in the last couple years, like first you have, you have a few examples of it, especially with some of the academy kids coming up, but the Rothrock breakthrough, I'm telling you guys, like not every coach has the, what's the word? I guess wherewithal to actually give it's partly X's and O's. Start that over. It's partially X's and O's coaching, but it's also about having just the faith and giving a guy an opportunity and letting him capitalize on it. And now I think we're kind of seeing a similar thing with KKR, where you got to credit, like I said, it's not just Schmetz, it's the whole coaching staff for trusting what they're seeing in training and then giving the player that opportunity. KKR, some coaches wouldn't have put him out there to make a play like that, and this coaching staff did. So I think
yeah, and look, I don't want to, I don't want to get him too off the hook and maybe give him. I don't want to glaze Brian because you know what I mean. I'm always very fair with Brian.
You got to keep him in check. You got to keep him in check.
To my understanding. So, like the Paul Rothrock thing came in kind of as a must-start situation because of all the injuries, all the issues that you had. So both Georgie and Paul, yes, he does give him that vote of confidence by putting him on, but those boys earned it on the field, and it wasn't something that was necessarily a possibility or an option. It was more of like this is all we have last season.
Necessity.
This is all we have. We need to get some guys on.
That is true. But Rothrock wasn't necessarily a name that you would say would need to be put out there, even in a situation where it's by necessity, you know?
No, because of the winger position and because of his two-way ability, I think that had a lot to do with it. But again, that's why these guys earned it in the field. What I will give, because again, it depends who you ask. I mean, you talk, about some of the younger guys that maybe are not getting some time. You might hear opposite, like Stuart Hawkins and, Danny at one point, and but that's not here nor there. I think that Brian, if I'm going to praise him on something, and I'm not trying to change your opinion, that's great, man. I love that you see it that way. But for me, it is holding the young guys to a certain standard, and it is keeping them motivated and yet not allowing them to get too big-headed or really keeping expectations low. It's not easy to do that. It's a balance, right? And I feel like even in front of the cameras and in public settings, Brian has no problem saying, hey, okay, let's chill. Just recently, right? I mean, he had a great game, and he talked about Paul Rothrock having maybe what he said, having a parachute just in case the missile blows up or something like that, right? Because they called him the Paul Rocket or something like that, and he kind of talked about that.
Paulie Primetime. I thought it was Paulie Primetime.
No, in this last press conference, I don't know if it was Noah or somebody said something about they called him. It was a Paul Rocket because of the shot. Oh no, it was Nico Antoine. I think is the one who asked the question. But anyways, I just feel like Brian always does a good job at making sure that expectations are low on the guys and that they are mindful about it. Sometimes it's a little too harsh, but I'd rather have that than maybe getting one of these young guys have big moments and then having expectations that they cannot fulfill. So I give Brian a lot of credit for that and the way he's handled a lot of moments with this team. And look, for all the issues that at times were clear last season, this locker room looks very united, and it seems like they're all in sync. They're all on the same page, and Brian has to do with that. That the good comes with the bad. When Brian needs to be credited, I'm always going to credit him. When he doesn't, then I won't. So in this one, I think that this specific group has a really good attitude, and that's credit to Spencer.
Someone in chat mentioned it earlier, but in a game like this, like vibes like that do matter.
Yeah.
Seattle is riding high right now. They're coming off their best game of the season. They're feeling pretty good. Cruz Azul, I mean, based on everything I've been hearing and that we've been talking about, I wouldn't say entirely roiled in turmoil, but they're getting there. Like I said, the amount of pressure that's on them in this game is immense. Like there are jobs on the line certainly for their coach, probably for guys on the roster too. Like if they don't get results, they're probably playing for jobs to an extent as well. So it all sets up for what should be a fun, high stakes, back and forth heavyweight clash.
And look, to stay on the Brian topic, when it comes to this specific game, I do want to say that his responsibility is going to be that starting lineup and that starting setup. But a lot of the results of this game, I'm going to put on the players. It's going to be on them to execute. It's going to be on them to be up to the task. It's going to be up to them to get those nerves off their system when it comes to playing at Estadio Olimpico. It's going to be on them, in my opinion. Ferreira, we talked about. Albert, we talked about. Christian being that captain that he needs to be. a guy like Obed Vargas that has been as electric as he has, can he have a huge game in this one? And Steph being the leader back there, making sure that he's always ready for the moments, the defense, everybody, it's going to be on the players. And I will absolve that responsibility off of Brian. He's going to set it up. We'll see how he sets it up. And then from then on, it's going to be up to the players to whether they are up for the moment.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Nico, we're coming up on an hour 10 here, so I think we can start the process of wrapping up this edition of Lobbing Scorchers Kickoff. If you guys have any final questions or topics, agendas, observations as we wrap up here, go ahead and drop them in chat. But I guess to wrap it up here, Nico, any final thoughts either on what we saw in the LAFC game as it pertains to this Cruz Azul game, or just this Cruz Azul game in general? Let's talk about how are you feeling about Seattle's chances in this game? You don't have to make a prediction, but are you feeling good about their chances of advancing, or are you feeling dicey about this?
I am feeling good. I am feeling good about them potentially advancing. Because of everything we talked about. Just rewind the show, and I think I've been pretty positive about their chances of getting a result down there in Stadio Olimpico, and that could be a 1-1. That could be a 2-2, right? I mean, I think Seattle could definitely get a result to move on, but with what I've seen talent-wise, with what I've seen of what they just did for LAFC, I think Seattle has good chances of winning this game. If I had to, I'm not going to put a percentage on it or anything, but I feel pretty confident that Seattle could go out there and get a result, which is night and day from, what maybe we would have seen if the team had not been showing signs of progression this season. So I do feel confident that Seattle can go out there and get a result. Anytime that you have a stellar defense, you give yourself a chance. Anytime that you have a team that understands and is all bought in on the identity of the team, and I see that from Seattle, you're giving yourself a good chance. And there's a lot more turmoil right now on the Cruz Azul than on Seattle's end. So, yes, I think that there's a good chance that Seattle can go out there and get a result.
I feel the same way. It's definitely attainable. It's going to be very difficult. You've got a desperate opponent on the road, and these games are really difficult anyway. But this is I think I've said this before, but these are the games that you want to play in. You got to relish this. You got to love this. This is why you do it, is to have a chance to test yourself in a game like this, in an environment like this, against an opponent like this. And really, you have such a great opportunity to make history, make your name on the international stage. We saw this team do it in 2022. If they do it again, I mean, it just adds to it, So there's definitely nerves associated with this. I definitely feel nervous before these CCC games, but at the end of the day, I think any player on this team, if you ask them to a man, they'll tell you I love this. This is why I play the game, So
yeah,
it's exciting to have a game like that this early in the season and really get to see what this team is made of.
100%. And this is the parameter that you're looking for. This is the moment that you're going to build on, and it's exciting. And I'm honestly anxious for the game and seeing how they respond. Team flew out on Sunday. They're going to have a training day on Monday, and obviously the typical outlook of just playing on the field and getting used to those fields, checking your cleats, making sure that everything's the way you want it on game day. This team has put up performances at that same stadium. I'll never forget that 2-2 against Pumas for the CCC final. And I think that hopefully some of those things kind of come back to certain players that were in those positions, Yamar and JP and, all these players that Alex Roldan, all those players that were so important in that specific game. So they know the stadium. They've been there, done that against a much more hostile crowd, I might say, because I don't think I've seen a Puma stadium the way I saw it that day, and maybe because I was present at that moment. But man, I don't know if Cruz Azul could replicate that sort of ambiance.
Got one more here from Maney to close it out here. Seattle wins CCC. Will people downplay it like they do with the 2022 win where the weaker teams won, giving Seattle an easier route to victory? People will try and downplay it. Like that's the thing, is people will try and downplay it no matter what the path is. We've talked about the easy path narrative surrounding 2022 quite a lot because I think it's hilarious. Like just the notion that there's an easy path at all in this competition. That's not a thing. It's really not. Like if you hear someone say that, they're not correct. Like that is there's no easy and not outside of the fact that it wasn't an easy path. So
that Leon team, people underplayed that Leon team so much. That team had so many quality players. Yeah, they wanted the next year. They had so many quality players. They had a stadium that in a fan base that is huge, that created an I don't know how Seattle went and got that draw without Yeimar, without Raul. I'm pretty sure that Freddie Montero started that game. Seattle had issues of their own, and they went and they played their hearts out against a Leon team that, like I said, was very quality. So that's a bunch of nonsense. But to the question, this year is ludicrous to even say anything like that. If you get through Cruz Azul, regardless of turmoil, and then you get the winner out of Chivas in America, and you win that game, and you move on, there is no harder path to get to the final than what the Seattle Sounders have today. I don't know if they'll do it. It's incredibly hard. We'll see how it plays out. But if they were to do it, man, it'd be the greatest CCL run of any team in MLS, right? Like we've seen teams get to those finals and not quite get there, but man, this road to that final is incredibly hard.
The degree of difficulty on this, folks, is incredibly high. I won't beat around that. I won't lie to you about that.
No.
That is why it's such a great opportunity, because I think to the original question, if Seattle does make it happen this year and they actually win the tournament, then no one can say shit.
Not a damn thing.
That is the opportunity that is presented with this. All right, Nico, I think that's a good place to wrap right there. Thanks again for another great edition of Lobbing Scorchers Kickoff. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the support. If you haven't done so yet, go ahead and like the video, sub to the channel, follow. We're 5 followers away from 300 on Instagram as we try and gain credibility on that platform. So if you haven't done so yet, go follow us on IG. Do I have anything else to shill? I don't know.
I don't know if you have that text I sent you, my guy, about the shout out I wanted to give, but I forget the guy's name because I'm using my phone for the platform, but I think his name was Jade, but he was a coach for Cascadia FC. Oh yeah. I did a little bit of reffing this weekend as part of the volunteer hours that I have to do for my daughter's Premier Soccer. Obviously, just small 4v4 for little kids that are part of the junior academies. And there was this coach for Cascadia FC that said, "Hey, you're Nico," and he said, "Man, I love Lobbing Scorchers, and love the show." And man, I always love to hear that, and so I wanted to give him a shout out because he does. First of all, his little girls that were playing the game were outstanding. The passing, the spacing. These little kids look like they were out there just balling. But coaches, especially when it comes to the youth levels, are a lot of times unrecognized, and they are the ones that build out soccer players for the future. So, I want to give them a big shout out because love to see that. I've done it in the past in the recreational level for the city of Kent, and there's no more rewarding moment and feel than seeing maybe 2, 3, 5 years later a kid that you were the one who put on the scene to like the game, and then all of a sudden they're on their way to college or on their way to a premier program, and it's always great. So I wanted to give them a big shout out for that.
That's awesome. Love to hear that. Love to hear that people are enjoying the podcast, enjoying these live shows. I know that I've been enjoying these. I love kicking off the week like this, catching up with you, getting to talk about the result that was and the game that lies ahead. Great stuff. Hey, we're gonna keep putting these out all season, And next time I see you guys, we might know Seattle's CCC fate. So that's exciting.
Yeah, man, I might have to do the effort and be on the reaction pod or live stream right away if I can. Because
we should be able to do that because it's a road game, so I'll be around.
It is a road game. I'm gonna see what the schedule looks like. It's gonna be pretty late night, but I'm gonna try to be on because it's gonna be either amazing and glorious, or it's gonna be real tough to talk about. But either way, I want to be part of it.
We'll be there either way. All right, we're getting out of here on that. Thank you all again for tuning in. Appreciate the support. We'll catch you guys next time. Peace. Don't want to give money to the oligarchs, but love lobbing Scorchers? Do we have a deal for you? MLS Season Pass is back on Apple TV with access to every single MLS match, including Leagues Cup and the entire Audi MLS Cup playoffs with no blackouts. It's not just the games, you get total access to the pre- and post-match MLS 360 whip-around show in both English and Spanish, and get live look-ins and highlights from around the league, as well as full match replays and recaps. Now, you can support our show by visiting lobbingscorchers.com/Apple TV to purchase your subscription and support our show.
Lobbingscorchers.com/Apple TV. Please, don't let the oligarchs win.